Cool. I think we can get started. So hello and welcome everyone to this webinar hosted by Spin Brands in collaboration with TikTok to discuss how you can leverage content creators to maximize your ad performance on TikTok. So basically a bit of a table of contents. We're just going to do some quick intros and then I'll chat about who Spin Brands is very briefly. And then Joel will talk about why creators from a TikTok standpoint with a bunch of stats. And then I'll go through 2 case studies for clients that we've worked with over the past year and showing 2 different approaches that we have to running TikTok ads. And at the end, we'll throw to a bit of a Q&A and I'll open up the chat box. So if you've got any questions, make sure to sort of pencil them down and then we'll jump on them at the end. I guess to kick things off, Joel, do you want to give yourself a bit of an intro?
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Rob. Really appreciate that. So yeah, as an introduction, my name's Joel. I'm an agency partnerships manager at TikTok. I've been working here for around about 18 months now. So in that time, as you can imagine, we've gone through an excessive amount of growth, whether that be from our monthly active users that are now exceeding 20 million, whether it be from product diversification. We've kind of gone through a number of different iterations with our pixel or ad formats as well, or whether that be kind of sponsorship opportunities, right? You may have seen that TikTok were one of the main sponsors of Euro 2020, for example, which was fantastic for us, continuing on that growth. But also recently we've announced our sponsorship of the 2022 Six Nations as well. So if you can see the Alan Wynne-Jones book in the background, you'll be aware that I am Welsh and I'll be supporting Wales in the Six Nations. But gone slightly off topic, but that's me and I'm looking forward to meeting you all.
So jumping into who we are, I'm Rob, the performance director of Spin Brands. And if you don't know us already, we are a pure play social media agency based out of London. We've been around for around 7 years now, and I've had the pleasure to work with a bunch of really amazing brands like Moët & Chandon, Google Cloud, Movember, Love Honey, and many more. We tend to focus mostly on FMCG and e-commerce, but we've worked across all different verticals and niches. We specialize in social media, which has recently obviously putting a lot of focus on TikTok because it's been such an amazing emerging channel, which has incredibly high engagement rates as compared to other platforms. Something which we're going to talk through a lot in this presentation is over the last year or so, we've seen organic styled content outperforming over stylized videos and statics with almost like 100% consistency. And this is true not just for TikTok, but all advertising platforms. There's a clear shift away from heavily branded ad content towards more raw, authentic content. And today we're going to discuss how we can leverage creators on the platform to sort of attain this. So Joel, do you want to try through why TikTok creators?
Yeah, definitely. And I think echoing Rob's point there, right, what we've seen over the past 12 or 18 months is, a general shift in the way that people are, or advertisers are producing content. And that shift has been towards, more of a user-generated style play. And that really taps into TikTok's mantra for business, right, which is don't make ads, make TikToks. So if we go on to the next slide, what we've looked at here is, from a community perspective, right, our creators are very much the guardians of positivity and inclusion. 74% of creators, feel genuine and true to themselves when posting on the platform. And that's fantastic for us, right? Because, if our creators are feeling positive and they feel like they can genuinely, post an authentic description of something, then, that plays very nicely and well for brands and advertisers as well. So if we go into the next slide, again, what this slide looks at is kind of the uniqueness and the differentiation from other platforms. I know Rob, talked that user-generated content is really kind of making a shift across all platforms and, particularly in the social media market. But for us here, what we've seen is that 75% of TikTokers felt that the content was unique. And again, just reinforcing that statement on the previous slides that allows, users to feel very authentic and create this user-generated style content on our platform. And again, echoing Rob's point, looking at this from an engagement perspective, just by using TikTok creators, we've seen an engagement rate of around about 7.7%, which is, massively up to the 3.8% that we're seeing on Instagram. And, what's really kind of key to that is the way that users, from a creator standpoint, but also from our community, can engage with that content. And that can be in the form of duets, stitches, sounds, maybe viral trends, but really anything that can, take your fancy. There's a community for everyone on our platform. I found out the other day that we've got a community of 1.5 million users in the UK who are interested in skateboarding, for example. Not that I'm much of a skateboarder, but you get the picture. So yeah, if we can go into the next slide. And again, by using creators, we can then demonstrate, performance and direct implications to sales off the back of that. You may have seen in the press or on LinkedIn, for example, our TikTok made me buy it trend. But again, this is really stimulated by the use of creators that can drive that particular performance as well. So these slides here, this slide here looks at what source is most likely to get you to buy a new product, and so unsurprisingly, 59% is from family, friends, or recommendations. Maybe you're on WhatsApp groups and people have been posting things on there. But coming in second is TikTok, right? And 39%, argue that the source that they are more likely to buy a product from is TikTok. And that's considerably up from your, traditional digital advertising, coming in at 19%, Instagram ads at 23%, and, unlocking that kind of TV advertising budget as well, which is coming in at 31% as well. So if we go into the next slide. And really, viral moments occur every day, right? And echoing the points on the last slide, with our kind of TikTok made me buy it trend, we found that 56% of TikTokers agree that the platform helped them decide what to buy. And 67% felt that the platform, gave them ideas that they'd never even thought of. And, going back to my earlier point in terms of, communities with skateboarding or communities, in any aspect of life, if there's something that you'd like to explore, go and explore it, because there's a community for everything and everyone on TikTok as well. It's cool. And yeah, just looking at this from an ad recall perspective, we found that there's a 27% higher ad recall in branded content that has included creators, and a 19% ad recall for content that has no creator collaboration. So what this slide really reinforces is that, let's use creators to maximize our performance, and yeah, feeds nicely into the title of this presentation. I think it's over to Rob now.
Perfect. So we're going to talk through two case studies of brands that we've worked with over the past year. So the first is Ocean Bottle and their e-confessions campaign. So for those who don't know, Ocean Bottle is a B Corp, which is on a mission to clean up our oceans of plastic waste through encouraging the use of sustainable products, one of which being their bottles. And basically our brief was that with they basically are seeking to encourage people to leave a confession about something that they do on a regular basis, which isn't environmentally friendly, despite them knowing better. And our goal was to generate as much awareness for this as possible in order to get people to organically leave their hashtag e-confession and expand our earned media. And basically for every confession that someone left through the website or through TikTok or Instagram or whatever, Ocean Bottle would pledge to stop 10 plastic bottles from entering the ocean. So they kind of coupled this brand awareness campaign with this promotion of a good cause. So basically, our campaign strategy was to maximize campaign participation. We could have simply just run a reach campaign to deliver a higher number of impressions, but our goal here was to spread awareness of a cause, as well as generate more influencers to step up to the plate and share their confession with the audience. So basically, our campaign was going live on the 16th of August, and we need to capitalize on that basically immediately because we wanted everything to happen really quickly. So we launched our ads immediately after to boost the earned media that we generate and give more social proof to the content creators that we would be promoting. We basically split up the campaign into 2 phases, each with different benchmarks for success. So if the number of engagements is above or on track for 484,000 for our given level of spend, we would increase spend to make sure that our target was met. But if performance was 75% below target, we would pull spend back. So phase 1, we had 8 influencers post their hashtag eConfession across TikTok, and we pre-agreed with them, obviously, that we'd be able to use their content for advertising purposes. And we used Spark Ads to promote 6 different influencers' content natively. And basically what Spark Ads does is it promotes the influencer's content directly through their page rather than sort of like downloading the video and putting it on your own channel. This looks really native. It doesn't look like an ad so much, and it kind of works to all the best practices. We then used a broad audience to help the algorithm optimize early. This is sort of like a best practice of TikToks, is to start wide and then narrow down once you have a benchmark of success. And we used a traffic campaign to drive people to the landing page on their website to learn more. So basically, by the end of phase 1, we cross-checked our forecast versus our results, and we found that we were overperforming and on track to reach our end target of 813,000 engagements with no additional budget added on, which is a really good place for us to be. So I'll play one of the videos that we had made from a influencer now to give you a bit of a gauge of what we were working with.
Mum, what have you done? Have you been in my room and you've thrown away all my plastic bottles? Oh, well, I was keeping them safe there so that I didn't want to throw them out and harm the planet. Well, I know I shouldn't be buying water out, but I just keep forgetting. But I won't anymore because I've got my new ocean bottle. So I've got my new ocean bottle, so I will remember now. Actually, you should get one too. But okay, I buy 1 bottle of water a week, a couple of days. But I save the bottles so they don't affect the planet anymore. So, but now you've thrown them out. Well, actually, you're guilty as well because you use those cotton buds a lot. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. They're not very good for the planet. What? Oh, I use a couple of them. Yeah. No, not all of them. Oh my God, it's like being interviewed by the FBI. Hello everyone, I hope that video made you giggle. More importantly though, Ocean Bottle challenged me to come clean with my e-confession, which means that even though every day I try and do something to help the planet, sometimes we get it a little bit wrong, me being buying too many plastic bottles and hoarding them in my room. Ocean Bottle wanted me to challenge you to come clean with your e-confession. Either you can write it in the comments on this video or pop it on your story, hashtag e-confession and @Ocean Bottle. For every e-confession we get, Ocean Bottle will stop 10 plastic bottles from making their way to our oceans, which is pretty amazing. So have at it, and I can't wait to read them. Bye.
So that's a good example of one of the bigger influencers that we used who actually got quite a lot of traffic through our ads. And that takes us into phase 2. So after phase 1's performance, it was clear that TikTok, of all of the platforms that we were running this campaign on, was driving the most engagements and conversations. And so we revised our budgets to give TikTok a heavier skew. And at this point, we kind of rejigged our strategy a little bit because we were then able to re-engage with some audiences that we'd be targeting. So these mostly came down to people who'd been to the website, people who had viewed a percentage of the video, whether that was 25% or 50%, people who'd engaged with the ad. And then on TikTok, you can also engage with people who have interacted with a hashtag, which is quite neat and obviously something which is super powerful for this campaign. At this point, we also suggested to the Ocean Bottle team to make a montage of the influencer content to be made, which is a little bit more sort of branded and clear call to action. And we launched this alongside a couple other influencer ads at the same time. And finally, we narrowed our targeting based on the account managers or our account manager at TikTok's recommendations, because we were basically able to see which audiences and which demographics had the highest engagement rates and things like that. As you can see on the right, to date, we've had 51.5 million views through the hashtag, which is a pretty good result, I would say. So coming to the actual results, these are from the 17th of August to the 2nd of September. Obviously, I haven't put anything here that's too, I guess, telling for the brand, but we had 16,000 followers added to different pages. Our cost per 1,000 engagements was £26.90. I want to call out that as well, because we're using a cost per 1,000 engagements metric rather than a cost per engagement metric, because basically if you have cost per engagement, it's like 2 pence versus 3 pence, and the rounding is very significant there. Whereas the difference between 20 or 0.29 and 0.21 is like almost a 50% difference. So we kind of report on 1,000 engagement basis. We had 71 or 17.4 million paid impressions, and obviously the hashtag impressions we just showed. But I think also interestingly is the site sessions that we had increased by 75% across this time period. And that's not just from clicks directly from TikTok, that's just like total uplift. So we noticed, although a lot of people were clicking through the ads, we obviously had a lot of people going off and searching for Ocean Bottle separately and finding their way to the website. And then at the end of every campaign, we like to do a bit of a sort of post-mortem as to what went well and what we'd like to change. So in terms of learnings, I think it's really clear that promoting or owning a cause is a great way to get positive brand sentiment. And a good influencer can single-handedly make a campaign. We had 8 different influencers, of which, like I said, we ran 6 different ads. And yeah, the ad that I showed before had a markedly lower CPM than the others. And so that was able to drive much better results for our campaign. In terms of improvements, I think we could organize the campaign earlier so we had more time to sort of see what performs on organic before testing paid. But obviously this is a short burst campaign, so we needed to move quite quickly. We could test longer form videos as well. We had quite a lot of short videos, but not so many long videos, and that would be interesting to see how that worked. And it would be beneficial to test even larger creators than what we worked with as well, to see if there was a incremental benefit in basically paying more for bigger creators rather than using smaller ones. Cool, so hopefully all that made sense. I'm now going to talk through our second case study, which is Calafia. And for those of you who don't know, Calafia Farms is a popular youth-based alternative drinks brand with whom we work with in the UK and Australia. And I believe in summer of last year, they launched their Callalooya campaign, which is made for TV advertisements, which we activated across different social platforms. But in particular, we work with Calafia Farms on an ongoing basis, and our goal here is basically just brand awareness. And so we've been working with Calafia for a while, and we decided to try TikTok as a way to get more bang for their buck, essentially. Yeah, prior to TikTok, we were basically only running ads on Facebook. And so it was a really good way for us to test a different platform and see what kind of performance we got. So contrary to Ocean Bottle, we had to take an always-on approach with Calafia, which was nice because it gave us a bit more flexibility to try different tactics and optimize over a longer period of time. So we decided to launch a number of ads promoting different styles of influencer content and monitor results closely. And after understanding what styles of content performed best, we would then source more influencers and brief accordingly. So again, we sort of break this up into different steps. Step 1 is sourcing creators. And the first thing we wanted to do was find a number of different influencers who had distinctly different styles of content. So rather than asking like a sketch comedian to create recipe content or an acclaimed barista to make memes, we instead tailored each brief to each of the creators that we found and we wanted to work with. So this would consist of recipes, memes, sketches, and reviews. And again, obviously, for each creator that we worked with, we made sure we got their explicit permission to use their content for advertising purposes so that we could run them as Spark ads. So then in terms of audience selection, again, as per TikTok's best practices, we started by running all of our audiences in a broad campaign, which allowed us to easily see which creatives work best and give a rough gauge on performance, on what performance would be like relative to other platforms. Although, yeah, when you run a broad audience, you're not super optimized and whatnot. If, let's say, you run a broad audience to start with and your CPMs are like 50% more than another platform, you know that with all the optimization in the world, you're probably going to struggle to get down to that benchmark. And so it's really good to understand, I guess, as soon as possible what's working and what's not working so you can adjust accordingly. And then basically similar to what we did with Ocean Bottle, except over a longer period of time here, we would be able to see which subgroups interacted with our ads and then target those interest groups directly. And we would also have data to utilize lookalikes at that point as well, which is really, really beneficial. So after a few weeks of testing, we noticed that comedy style videos were outperforming the day in a life or like recipe videos by a pretty significant margin. And so we opted to look for more influencers who could deliver this content for us. And this is where we decided to work with Daniel Fox. And Daniel Fox not only allowed us to get far better organic reach than we had with other creators, but it also allowed us to get lower CPMs on our Spark ads as the improved ad quality was favored by the algorithm. And this is quite a nice flywheel effect because although we spent more to work with a bigger creator, like someone like Daniel, we had 2 videos made by him and each of which had like 160,000 impressions organically plus thousands of comments. And so we basically paid for itself with just the organics impressions. And then the ad quality was so far improved that our CPMs on our ads came down. And so although it's like a higher upfront cost to work with a bigger influencer, over the long run, it ends up being more cost effective. But this is my favorite of the 2 ads that he made for us. And so I'll show it now. I just wanted to call out as well how subtle the branding is and how well it kind of works for his audience of like sketch comedy.
Then Spirulina turns to me and says, "Mummy, not another pour." Oh. Sorry, darling, I'm not actually drinking cow anymore. Oh, anyone is on oat now, darling. Oh, well, we're the same, of course. Of course. Well, actually, we're such an oat family that my son won't even go to school until he's had his oat macchiato. What a treat. Well, he has a very refined palate. Well, for us, it's actually all we drink. We don't consume anything else. We survive entirely on oat alone. Wonderful. Well, I don't know if I told you, but we love oats so much that my youngest is actually called Calafia. Really? She's called Calafia Barista Fox. Well, it's funny you should say that because my husband is actually go on. My husband is actually an oat.
Seen that video like 10 times, so it still makes me laugh. But yeah, that video performed incredibly well on a sort of performance basis, on an ads basis. And I want to call out as well here in terms of optimization is we moved to a lot of the similar things that we talked about earlier in terms of re-engaging audiences which had interacted with the platform in the past, as well as using lookalikes and things like that. I also wanted to show that the organic engagement that we got on this ad was really great. So we had so many comments which basically called out how organic it felt and how good it was as an ad. Each with quite a lot of likes as well, which was really great to see. When we talk through results, I want to caveat this by saying that this was run in Q4 and we were optimizing for reach as our primary metric. So although the cost per engagement looks high in comparison to the previous campaign, that wasn't the goal necessarily. But even still, our cost per 1,000 engagements was £94 or thereabouts. And our CPM was down at £1.32, which is very competitive, and it's good to be able to use a different platform for brand awareness that sort of overlaps others that we may be using. So again, in terms of key learnings, basically, I think leaning into creative strengths is the most obvious call out from this. Using content that creators are really good at, that they're niched into, works better than sort of just putting out a very generic brief and hoping for the best. I think that comedy works really well also when it's natural. I think this is definitely more suited to FMCG than it is to like e-commerce or like a conversions focused campaign, because in this instance, our main goal is brand awareness and positive brand sentiment, so that when someone goes into a store, they might have a positive brand recognition with Calafia Farms. And so comedy works really well to sort of tie that together, whereas it's much less like call to action or direct response driven. In terms of improvements, we'd like to continue testing more creatives, especially now that we've sort of found what's working. And I think we could utilize remarketing even more than we have in the past, especially with some of these new tools like being able to target hashtags and being able to target your website visitors as well. Cool, so that wraps our webinar. Hopefully that was useful to everyone. Those are two quite different campaigns that we ran, each of which with different strategies and different results. But ultimately, we've been really enjoying working on TikTok recently. There's a lot of new features always being rolled out every other week, which is quite tricky to keep up on, but it means that there's a lot of different options for us to manage. Cool. So I'll now open the floor to a bit of a Q&A. So if you'd like to put any messages in the chat or any questions that you may have, then we can be sure to talk through them now. You can just put it in the chat, Andreas, if you'd like. Or I can make you host. One sec. There you go. You can unmute yourself now.
Thank you. I could not be bothered to type what I was going to ask. On the first one, you mentioned that you was looking at potentially testing long form video. And I was wondering how that also played a role in you kind of allowing the creator to take a degree of control over what they're making, especially in like the second video or the second one, where one of your key learnings was to kind of allow the creator to take that lead on that. I was just wondering how that plays into video length and other facets that you want to focus on as well.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I suppose, again, it's talking about working with creators that have a certain style of content. For example, if someone does like short Vine style content and it's really snappy clips, asking them to make a 3-minute video is probably not going to drive the best performance. Whereas in the first video that we showed, that content creator typically makes longer form content. And when it's with a brand which has, I guess, a lot of call outs, or it's a big campaign or something, it's easier to make long form content. Obviously, we don't want people just like rambling for a couple minutes at a time, but it's definitely worthwhile seeing how they get on. But having the brief like open enough for them to sort of go away and do it, rather than constricting them and saying you have to make it, under 25 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, I think, just to add to that, obviously, as Rob said, giving the creator full control is one of our best practices off the back of that. And I think, if we're looking at it from a benchmark perspective, if we're looking at hitting kind of 9 to 15 seconds as an average video length, that's probably where we're going to see the best performance. But again, just kind of circling back, if the creator, wants to look at kind of leveraging their expertise, then again, we'd give them the control to do that.
Makes sense. Cool.
Definitely. Cool. So taking some questions from the chat. So Lauren asked, what is the creative process for coming up with this style of TikToks? So basically, internally, what we have is a creative team who basically is led by our creative director. And oftentimes when a client comes to us, we will sit down in a room and brainstorm different ideas in order to determine sort of like what style of content we think is going to work best for that brand. Again, this is very contingent on whether it's like an FMCG and our goal is brand awareness, or whether it's like pure direct response driven or something like that. But basically, yeah, we sit down, we look at ad performance that we've had for our other accounts to see what kind of style of content works best. And then we basically just brainstorm a few ideas and then go away, and either we go to the creators and we go out and use something like the creator marketplace or our own sort of black book of influencers to find a good match, or we will put the brief in the hands of the brand that we're working with if it's on more of like a strategy or a consultative nature, and go ahead with that. Hopefully that answered that question. And then Alex asked, do you think the size of influencers following is important, or is the content quality key in terms of achieving good results with a budget behind it? This is something which I have quite a strong opinion on in terms of just performance marketing in general, is that it's almost irrelevant who your influencer is that you're using, unless they are like a massive name that is maybe recognizable by a lot of people or in a specific niche. But what I will say is that big influencers are typically big because they make good content, right? And so if you're working with a creator who only has 100 followers, made 10 videos, chances are that they're not going to make the best performing ad because they don't make the best videos. Whereas if you work with a big influencer, chances are that they're big because they make really good content. And so I think it's a bit of like a chicken and an egg scenario, but that's, I think, the main benefit to working with big influencers. It's not necessarily their organic reach that is hugely beneficial, but it's the fact that they're good content creators. That's why they're big. Do you have anything to add to that, Joel?
No, I was gonna say that you've obviously been listening to the training, Rob. That's fantastic.
Exactly. Did anyone else have any other questions?
Perfect. I think yeah. One final thing to add from my side, Rob, and I know you went through in the kind of the examples of two different kind of case studies there. You know, for us, what we're seeing is, you know, brands that are adopting this strategy from, you know, creative execution, working with creators, but also coming on that journey with us on a more kind of longer term strategy are really the clients that are getting the best reward from the platform. So if you are looking at exploring, you know, potentially a one-off campaign with us, you know, maybe consider looking at what does that longevity of that campaign look like? Are we looking at a 3-month, 6-month, 12-month journey with TikTok? I think at the end of the day, TikTok isn't really going anywhere at the moment. You know, we've exceeded 1 billion monthly active users on the platform. So now I think it's time to begin thinking about that more longer term strategy on the platform, and tapping into those always on activations that Rob's already discussed with Calafia.
100%. And yeah, just as a final cap to this conversation, Spin Brands is available to do anything in social media really, but this is typically coming down to influencer and content management, as well as strategy, and then obviously performance and managing ads for brands like yourselves. But I'll put in the link to our website again. If you haven't already, if you sign up to that link there, we'll send over the recording of this presentation in a few hours' time. But yeah, other than that, feel free to get in touch with anyone through our contact form on our website or my email address, which is also in the chat below. But thanks for coming, everyone, and hope to hear from you soon.
Thanks a lot, guys.